Obviously awesome. How to nail product positioning so customers get it, buy it, love it, by April Dunford. Picture this. You're rushing through a packed Washington, D.C. subway station during morning rush hour. People are everywhere, clutching their coffee, eyes fixed straight ahead, mentally already sitting at their desks. Then you hear it, a violin cutting through the chaos. There's a guy leaning against the wall in a t-shirt and baseball cap, his violin case cracked open at his feet for tips. He's playing some seriously gorgeous stuff. Bach, Schubert, the kind of music that usually fills ornate concert halls with velvet seats and tickets that cost more than your dinner. But here in this cold, impersonal subway tunnel, he might as well be invisible. 1,000 people stream past him, a handful toss in $1. Maybe one or two pause briefly before the crowd sweeps them along. After 45 minutes of pouring his soul into that instrument, he packs up. His grand total? $32. Now here's where it gets interesting. That guy in the baseball cap? His name is Joshua Bell, and he's literally one of the world's greatest violinists. That violin he's playing is a Stradivarius from 1713, worth over $3 million. Just 2 nights before, he'd sold out a concert hall in Boston where the cheapest seats were $100. The performance he just gave in that subway was genuinely world-class, offered completely free. And almost nobody noticed. Why not? That question cuts right to the heart of something that haunts not just musicians, but inventors, entrepreneurs, artists, and maybe you too. Why does something brilliant, something genuinely valuable, so often get completely overlooked? The answer has nothing to do with quality. It has everything to do with context. In a concert hall, Joshua Bell is a virtuoso. In a subway, he's just background noise. Today, we're diving into a book that's all about mastering that context. It's called Obviously Awesome, written by marketing expert April Dunford. This isn't just another business book. It's a guide to making sure the brilliant thing you've created, the incredible idea you're sitting on, or the unique talent you possess gets seen for what it really is. Not as noise in a subway, but as the headliner in a sold-out concert hall. By the time we're done, you'll understand the secret to making your value crystal clear, so the right people don't just get it. They actively seek it out and fall in love with it. Every creator, every founder, every person with a passion project knows this feeling intimately. You've poured everything into something. Built it, refined it, obsessed over it. To you it's amazing. Its brilliance seems, well, obvious. But then you show it to the world and get blank stares. People compare it to things it's nothing like. They ask confusing questions. They say, oh, so it's kind of like that other thing? And your heart sinks, because it's absolutely nothing like that other thing. You spend all your time just explaining what your product is, instead of talking about why it's valuable. As April Dunford explains, this isn't a sales problem or a marketing problem. Shouting louder about something confusing doesn't magically make it clearer. It's a positioning problem. Your product is like that world-class violinist in the subway, a masterpiece without the right frame. Most of us, when we create something, fall into one of two traps without even realizing it. The first trap is getting stuck on what we originally intended to build. Imagine you set out to bake the world's greatest chocolate cake. You've made a dozen decisions before touching the flour. You're competing with other cakes, pies, fancy desserts. You'll sell it in a bakery by the slice. Your customers are people celebrating something special. But during your experiments, you accidentally create something small, single-serving, and perfect for a little paper wrapper. The recipe is almost identical. But have you made a better cake? Or have you accidentally invented the world's most decadent chocolate muffin? If you insist on calling it cake, you're going to confuse everyone. People don't eat cake for breakfast at coffee shops. They don't grab cake on their commute. By sticking to your original cake idea, you've positioned your creation in a market where its best qualities, convenience, portability, don't matter at all. But if you call it a muffin, suddenly everything clicks. You're competing with donuts and bagels. You're selling to commuters. The entire business transforms. Not because the product changed, but because its context did. So often, what we end up with isn't what we started building. Our email app has morphed into more of a group chat. Our database has become an analytics tool. Our cake has become muffins. But we're so close to it, we can't see the shift. The second trap is that the world changes around us, while our positioning stays frozen in time. Back to our bakery. Say you successfully pivot to muffins, and for years, you sell a super healthy muffin packed with nuts and seeds. You call it the diet muffin, and it's a huge hit with the calorie-counting office workers next door. Business is booming. Then a new bakery opens across the street. Your sales tank. You wander over to investigate and see a massive line of people, not just your old customers, but athletes from the gym, trendy young parents. And what are they buying? A muffin that looks almost identical to yours. But it's not called a diet muffin, it's called a gluten-free paleo snack. Your product didn't change at all, but the market did. The whole idea of being on a diet became outdated. New trends like paleo and gluten-free eating exploded. Your diet muffin now seems old-fashioned and irrelevant, even though your ingredients are perfect for the new trend. You got trapped in your original positioning while the world moved on without you. Both traps happen because we assume our product has some kind of default position. We think it can only be one thing. But April Dunford's core message is that positioning isn't a default setting. It's a deliberate choice. Think about whoever invented the cake pop. If they'd pitched it as cake on a stick, we'd all be horrified. It sounds like some kind of Frankencake. Sticks don't belong in cake. It violates everything we understand cake to be. But position it as a lollipop? Suddenly the stick makes perfect sense. The round shape makes sense. It's a lollipop for grown-ups with a delicious, cakey center. Same exact product, but the frame of reference transforms it from monstrous to brilliant. So how do we find the right context? For decades, the standard tool has been something called a positioning statement. It's basically a Mad Lib for marketers. For target customers, our product is a market category that provides key benefit. April tells this hilarious story from her early days at IBM, where she was forced to fill one of these out for a database product. Her result was a mess of circular logic that was completely useless. And that, she argues, is the problem. The positioning statement assumes you already know all the answers to the big questions. It doesn't help you figure out if you're selling a cake or a muffin. It just locks you into your current, possibly flawed assumptions. So we need something better, a real process. And that process begins not by staring at our product, but by breaking positioning down into its fundamental building blocks. There are 5 of them, plus 1 bonus. And the order matters tremendously. The first component, the absolute foundation, is competitive alternatives. If your product vanished tomorrow, what would your happiest customers do? The answer is almost never what you think. You might be obsessed with some rival startup, but your customer has probably never heard of them. For them, the real alternative might be do it with a spreadsheet, hire an intern, or even just live with the problem and do nothing. You need to understand what customers are actually comparing you to in their own minds, because that comparison defines what better means to them. Once you know the real competition, you move to the second component, unique attributes. These are the features and capabilities you have that the alternatives lack. This is your secret sauce. It might be patented technology, a unique business model, or specialized expertise. This isn't about vague claims like, we're easy to use. It's about provable facts. What can you do that they genuinely can't? The third component connects your features to the customer's world. It's your value. So you have a unique attribute, so what? Why should anyone care? Value is the benefit your unique attributes deliver to customers, framed around a goal they're trying to achieve. A feature is a 15-megapixel camera. The benefit is sharper photos. The value is being able to print a beautiful family portrait that isn't blurry, or zooming in on your child's face during the school play and seeing their smile clearly. Value is the reason your secret sauce actually matters. Now, that value isn't equally important to everyone. Which brings us to the fourth component: target market characteristics. Who are the people that care deeply about the specific value you deliver? This isn't about broad demographics like small businesses. It's about finding the identifiable traits of buyers who are an absolute perfect fit. They're the ones who buy quickly, don't haggle on price, and tell everyone they know about you. Your goal is to find more people just like them. What makes them your best fit customers? With these 4 pieces locked in, we arrive at the most crucial and often most difficult choice: the 5th component, market category. This is the box you put your product in. It's the frame of reference that sets all the assumptions. If you say you're a CRM, people immediately think of Salesforce. They assume certain features and a certain price point. If your category choice works for you, it saves you tons of explanation. But if it works against you, you'll spend all your time fighting those assumptions. April worked with a startup that built what they called email for lawyers. But it didn't have a calendar, which is absolutely basic for any email system. Customers were baffled. What it did have was amazing, secure file sharing. But file sharing isn't what people expect from an email tool. They were positioning it as email, but what they'd actually built was team collaboration software. By changing that market category, suddenly, their lack of a calendar wasn't a fatal flaw, and their strength in file sharing became their main attraction. Choosing your market category is like choosing whether to call your creation a cake pop or cake on a stick. It makes all the difference in the world. Finally, there's the optional 6th component, a relevant trend. A trend isn't a market category. Artificial intelligence isn't a market, it's a trend. But AI-powered CRM tells you the market, CRM, and gives you a hint about what makes it special right now, AI. Layering on a trend can make your product feel more urgent and modern. One of April's clients, Sampler, helped big brands send out product samples. They were in the product sampling market, but by aligning with the trend of companies wanting to build direct relationships with customers, they repositioned as direct-to-consumer sampling. Suddenly, their solution became a high-priority strategic purchase for these brands. These components all flow into one another naturally. The alternatives define your unique attributes. The attributes deliver your value. The value defines your target market. And all of that helps you choose the perfect market category. So how do you actually find these answers? April lays out a 10-step process, which is really about getting the right people in a room to have the right conversation. It starts not with your product, but with your happiest customers. Make a list of your raving fans, the people who just get it. They hold all the keys. Every step of the process comes back to them. What would they use if you didn't exist? What value do they get from your unique features? What characteristics do they share? Once you have your components nailed down, you need to decide how you're going to compete in your chosen market. April describes 3 styles of positioning. The first is head-to-head. This is when you decide to take on the market leader at their own game. It's like a new soda company trying to out-Cola Coke. It's incredibly difficult and expensive, and for a small company, it's usually a terrible idea. You're accepting the market as it exists and just claiming you're better. This is a battle you can only win if you have a massive, undeniable advantage. The second, and much smarter style for most companies, is big fish, small pond. Instead of trying to win the entire market, you aim to dominate a specific niche within it. You find a subsegment of customers whose needs aren't being met by the big players. April tells this powerful story about a company she worked at called Jana Systems. They were a tiny CRM company getting absolutely crushed by the industry giant Siebel Systems. They had one unique feature. They could model complex relationships between people. Most customers didn't care at all. But then they met an investment banker who went absolutely crazy for it. They realized that for investment banks, mapping those relationships was a massive, unsolved problem, so they stopped trying to be a CRM for everyone. They became the CRM specifically for investment banks. They dominated that niche, grew from $2 million to $70 million in revenue in 18 months, and were eventually acquired for over $1 billion. They didn't take on Coke. They became Coke for dogs, something the market leader couldn't and wouldn't do. The third and most difficult style is create a new game. This is when you decide that no existing market can contain what you've built. You have to invent an entirely new category. This is incredibly hard, because first you have to convince the world that the problem you solve is real, then convince them that your new category is the right way to think about it, and then convince them that you're the leader in it. It's a massive educational effort, but if you succeed, the rewards are enormous. You get to define the rules of a game that's perfectly tailored to your strengths. Once you've worked through this process, once you understand your alternatives, your value, your target, your category, and your style, you have your positioning. You've built the proper frame for your masterpiece. The final step is to capture this not in some clunky statement, but in a simple, shareable document, a positioning canvas. So everyone in your organization, from sales to marketing to product development, is telling the same clear, compelling story. This story then becomes the foundation for everything else: your website copy, your sales pitches, even your future product decisions. It's the source code for making your product feel, to the right people, obviously awesome. When you finish a book like Obviously Awesome, it's tempting to think of it as a manual exclusively for founders and marketers, and it absolutely is that. It's one of the best I've come across. But the real power of April Dunford's ideas goes way deeper than just selling a product. What she's really given us is a framework for understanding and communicating any kind of value, including our own. Think about it. As you move through life, you're constantly positioning yourself. When you apply for college, you're not just listing grades and activities. You're trying to position yourself as a certain type of student, the innovator, the leader, the creative force that the admissions office is looking for. When you go for a job interview, you're positioning your skills and experience against other candidates, both real and imagined. The principles in this book are a roadmap for exactly that process. What's your competitive alternative? For a young person starting out, it might be another smart, hardworking high school graduate. Okay, so what are your unique attributes? What experiences, skills, or perspectives do you have that the average smart, hardworking graduate doesn't? Maybe you taught yourself to code, or spent a summer volunteering abroad, or have an encyclopedic knowledge of 19th century poetry. And what's the value of those attributes? That's the critical question. Teaching yourself to code isn't just a skill. Its value is demonstrating you're a self-starter who can solve problems independently. Volunteering abroad doesn't just look good on paper. Its value is showing you have resilience, empathy, and a global perspective. The people who succeed are the ones who excel at translating their attributes into clear, compelling value for whoever's sitting across the table. And who's your target market? Who are the people, companies, or communities that care the most about the specific value you offer? Trying to be everything to everyone is a recipe for being nothing special to anyone. The big fish, small pond strategy is one of the most powerful life strategies there is. Instead of trying to be the best student in the entire school, what if you focused on becoming the absolute best at one specific thing? The go-to person for video editing, or the most knowledgeable student on environmental policy. By narrowing your focus, you can dominate a niche and build a reputation that serves as a launchpad for everything else. The biggest lesson I take from this book is the idea of consciously choosing your context. We often let the world define us by default. We fall into the exact traps April describes. We get stuck on who we thought we were supposed to be, or we fail to adapt as the world changes around us. But we have the power to change the frame. Are you just a kid who works a part-time job at a coffee shop? Or are you an aspiring entrepreneur learning the fundamentals of customer service and small business operations? The underlying reality is identical, but the positioning is worlds apart. One is passive description. The other is an active, compelling story. So here are a few simple things you can do right now to apply these ideas to your own life. First, identify your happy customers. Think of 3 to 5 people, teachers, mentors, friends, family, who truly believe in you. The ones who just get you. Ask them a simple question. When you think of me, what do you think my biggest, most unique strength is? Their answers will give you powerful clues to your unique attributes and value. Second, define your competitive alternative. When you're competing for an opportunity, what does the default candidate look like? What are their standard skills and experiences? This gives you the baseline you need to stand out. Finally, practice reframing yourself. Take a simple fact about yourself and try positioning it in 2 different market categories. Let's say you're captain of your video game team. In the gaming market category, that's cool, but pretty common. But what if you position that experience in the leadership market category? Suddenly, you're not just a gamer. You're a strategist who manages a team, resolves conflicts, and motivates people under pressure toward a common goal. That's a story that will make a college admissions officer or employer sit up and pay attention. That was a summary of Obviously Awesome by April Dunford. We've certainly covered the main ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful city. The real adventure, the real discovery, happens when you actually walk the streets yourself. This book is packed with stories, nuances, and a certain kind of clarity that can only be experienced firsthand. If you're building something, creating something, or even just trying to figure out how to present your best self to the world, this book isn't just helpful, it's essential. Think of this summary as your travel guide. If anything we talked about sparked your curiosity, I genuinely encourage you to pick up a copy. The journey of reading it is an investment in your own clarity, and that's one of the most valuable investments you can ever make. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you a new way to think, please do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book from the Billionaire's Bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.